were so simple. The church for 2,000 years, Catholic and Protestant, has looked back to the golden age when everything was simple and clean and pure. Everything was in neat, simple little boxes and packages. That's a fiction. The fact is the early church was in complete turmoil. This is demonstrated by the Gnostic Gospels because they are produced in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, and they are evidence of a great deal of very healthy and exciting turmoil in the doctrines of the church and violent and bloody disagreements. It was not a golden age, it was an age of bloodshed in which people felt so passionately on these matters of Christ and the nature of Christ and the nature of true worship of Christ that there was no reconciliation available whatsoever. That is, the reverse is true. Today, we have uniformity, orthodoxy. So the picture of the church, like this, going back to a single focus, in the golden age, is reversed. That is, this age is the age of orthodoxy and simplicity, where it's all laid out by the Catholic theologians for the Catholics and by the Protestant theologians for the Protestants. And in the case of the Protestants, they are more inclined to listen to the individual minister than they are to listen to the authorities. But for the Catholics, there is one authority only, and that's the Pope. And that's it. That is the basis of authority. This is the basic difference between Catholicism and Protestantism. As for the Catholic, the source of authority is one single figure. 1925, the church published the doctrine of the infallibility of the Pope, raising hackles all over the world, especially among the Protestants. 1925 is where that doctrine comes from. It's within recent history. Anyway, there is a single authority. For the Protestants, the source of authority is not any individual, but the Bible itself. But the fact is, here we are. We all of us, have Bibles in the home, and we read them. And each of us is his own church and his own pope and his own minister. And so, if we were all Protestants, we'd all end up arguing with each other before the meeting had finished. And so I say there is no single source of authority for the Protestants. Everyone is an authority on the church because everyone can read the Bible. This is the age of literacy. Everyone in the room can read. And everyone views the Bible in a somewhat different way. Okay, let me turn now to some of the things that distinguish the Gnostics. They've disappeared. They're on the other page. That distinguish the Gnostics from the conventional picture of Christianity. This is why they ended up being extirpated. Extirpus in Latin, to pluck out by the root, is what extirpated means. And the fact is the church plucked the Gnostics out by the root. In 1937, I was a freshman at a university, and the teacher, all students were required to take History 1, everybody. And you were required to take it as an entering freshman. And so the teacher in my class had a pack of cards, written on the backs, and you couldn't see what was in it. And so he went to each student, and each one picked a card. And on the back of the card was the subject of your term paper, and for the course. And so I drew the Gnostic Gospels. In those days, my command of English was quite shaky. I was very uncertain about it. And very uncertain of my own qualifications as a student as well. And so I was terrified by all of this. Anyway, I picked my card, went off to the library, couldn't find anything. And I was desperate. And in panic, I went to the school librarian, who was a famous scholar. So famous that the faculty were scared stiff of him, but I was more afraid than anybody else. And so I went straight to him, and I said, what am I going to do? I said, I can't find anything. And he said, he was a kind man, and was set aside by the fearfulness of his reputation as a scholar, which is very substantial. And he said, I'm going to help you with this. And so I had the head librarian and the school's most famous scholar was going to help me look into the Gnostic Gospels, and he finally ended up being very angry. He said, there is no subject. He said, if I can't find the subject, nobody can. And this is true. And so he said, I'm going to talk to this professor. He said, he should never. I said, please don't. I said, I'm sweating already. And so I wrote the term paper. It took 1 page. And so that's all I could find. I didn't, by the way, large handwriting. And so I was so terrified that I turned my term paper into impersonation so I could apologize and grovel and crawl around the floor. And the teacher took this single page and said, oh my word, he said, you've done very well, he said. This is a wonderful term paper, he said. Why, there's something here I didn't even know. He said, this is clearly a work. I got ready to faint. I felt dizzy. I was going to stumble into a chair. But anyway, this is what we knew. Extirpated, no trace whatsoever until the discovery of the Gnostic Gospels at Nag Hammadi in Egypt in 1947. Now, what are the things that distinguish the Gnostics from the conventional picture? The most important distinction is eleutheria. That's biblical Greek. I'll put it down for you in case you want to start your studies now in biblical Greek. Eleutheria. It's untranslatable. I'm going to translate it anyway. The eleutheria means joy. This is what distinguishes the Gnostics from all of the conventional Christians of the 2nd century AD is eleutheria. It's a doctrine. They believe that by the pursuit of Christ and the identification with Christ and becoming Christ, that you achieve pure, undiluted joy, a joy which is so intense that it is not describable in human terms. It is pure joy. It is a spiritual thing that infuses the total person, and one is transpired, transfigurated by the joy. And they were carried away by the figure of Christ and the adulation of him, which was the really indescribable. I think I won't attempt to describe it. But anyway, eleutheria was what you reached for. Now, of course, I decided before I organized this talk, I never organized it, because it's too much to organize, but I decided that I was not going to mention Buddhism, but then I'm probably a very sick person and I can't help it. And so they have to mention Buddhism. But anyway, the fact is, eleutheria